In this video, what I'm going to teach you how to do is to factor trinomials. What we need to remember is the standard form for a parabola, which is a x squared plus bx plus c. And in all of our factoring trinomials exercises today, we're going to be only dealing with trinomials where a equals 1. It's kind of important because that'll help make things easier. The next video I'm going to do will have a be other numbers other than 1. So let's go ahead and try one, and I'm going to give you the basic idea behind it. So my first one I'm going to try is x squared plus 11x plus 24. Alright, so what I want to focus on here is that I need two numbers that multiply to c, which means they're factors of c. The other thing I need to pay attention to is that those numbers must also add to the b value. So let's use what we know here. I'm going to use a little tricky sort of deal here to work out the factors of 24, because that's my c value. So I'm going to draw a hill here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to start dividing by numbers to see what my factors of 24 are. So if I do 24 divided by 1, that's 24. If I do 24 divided by 2, that's 12. If I do 24 divided by 3, that's 8. If I do 24 divided by 4, that's 6. I cannot do 24 divided by 5, but now I do 24 divided by 6, and now I'm on this side of the hill. Once you've crossed over the top of the hill and come back to the other side, that means you've gotten all the factors. So the second thing I need to do, I've got all my factors that multiply to c, 4 and 6, 3 and 8, 2 and 12, 1 and 24. So I'm going to jot those down here. What we also have to pay attention to is that our numbers that we choose have to add to be 11. So if I do 4 plus 6, 3 plus 8, 2 plus 12, and 1 plus 24, let's add all those together. We got 10, 11, 14, and 25. One of those combinations adds to 11. So what I'm going to do is use the factors 3 and 8, and the way I write it in factor form is x plus 3, x plus 8. My two factors were both positive. That's my answer. Let's look at the next example. I'm going to do x squared plus 2x minus 15. Now, the thing I notice here is that my c is negative. Which tells me that in order to multiply to a negative number, I must have a negative and a positive. Because what we know about multiplying is that when you multiply a negative times a positive, I get a negative answer. So before we choose which numbers we're going to use, let's not even worry about the negative and positive. I'm going to do my factors of 15. 15 divided by 1 is 15. I can't do 15 divided by 2 evenly, so I'll leave that out. 15 divided by 3 is 5. Can't do 15 divided by 4. Can do 15 divided by 5, but again, now I'm over the hill on the other side, so those are my only factors. Now, again, we have to pay attention. One's negative, one's positive. So I'm going to rewrite these over here, but I'm going to say, can it be 3 and negative 5? Could it be negative 3 and 5? Because remember, one of them has to be negative, so we have two choices now. Could it be negative 1 and 15? Or could it be positive 1 and negative 15? What we also have to remember is that these two factors have to add to our b, which is 2. So I'm going to say 3 plus negative 5, negative 3 plus 5, negative 1 plus 15, 1 plus negative 15. If I add all these together, this one is negative 2, this one is positive 2, this one is 14, and this one is negative 14. Again, we're looking for a b value of 2. That means I have negative 3 and 5. And I'm going to write that x minus 3 because we're choosing a negative 3 there. And x plus 5. Those are my two factors. Let's look at another problem. We have x squared minus 6x minus 40. Again, my c is negative. So in order to multiply and get a negative answer, I need to have one positive and one negative. But let's not even worry about the positive and negative. We need the factors of 40 first. So I'm going to draw my hill. 40 divided by 1 is 40. 40 divided by 2 is 20. 40 divided by 3 I cannot do. 40 divided by 4 is 10. 40 divided by 5 is 8. 40 divided by 6 I cannot do. 40 divided by 7 I cannot do. And when I do 40 divided by 8, I'm back to my other side, which means I've completed the hill there. Again, I need one positive, one negative. So I'm going to take each of these pairs and make one positive, one negative, then flip it. So I have negative 5 and 8, or I could have positive 5 and negative 8. I could have negative 4 and 10, or 4 and negative 10. I could have negative 2 and 20, or 2 and negative 20. I could have negative 1 and 40, or 1 and negative 40. Again, I need to pay attention when I add them. They have to add to the b value, which is negative 6 this time. So let's add them all. Negative 5 plus 8, that's 3. 5 plus negative 8, that's negative 3. Those are out so far. Negative 4 plus 10 is 6. 4 plus negative 10 is negative 6. I really don't need to go any further because I know my b value is negative 6. That was the number I'm looking for. I'm going to write 4 and negative 10 plus 4 minus 10. Now our next case is a little bit tricky because what I'm going to write here is x squared minus 10x plus 24. Traditionally, we think c is positive. And we think a positive times a positive is a positive number, which is correct. However, we need to add to a negative number. The other way to multiply and get a positive answer is to do negative times negative. So what I'm going to focus on here is if c is positive and b is negative, you're going to have a negative situation here. Again, first I need to find my factors of 24. When I do 24 divided by 1, that's 24. 24 divided by 2 is 12. 24 divided by 3 is 8. 24 divided by 4 is 6. I cannot do 24 divided by 5 evenly, it's a decimal. 24 divided by 6, alright, well I'm over my hill here, so I've got all my factors. Again, c is positive, b is negative. I need to have a negative situation. Negative 4, negative 6, negative 3, negative 8, negative 2, negative 12, negative 1, negative 24. Let's add these together. Negative 4 plus negative 6, negative 3 plus negative 8, negative 2 plus negative 12, and negative 1 plus negative 24. Add those together, I get negative 10, negative 11, negative 14, negative 25. Again, the number I'm looking for is negative 10. I'm going to use the terms negative 4 and negative 6, x minus 4, x minus 6. One more special case here. Alright, let's say I have x squared minus 100. If you notice, there's my a, which is 1. My c is negative 100, but I do not have a b value. So in this case, my b is 0. I need factors of negative 100, which means I need a negative and a positive, and they need to add to 0. Without even doing the hill here, I do know that my numbers have to be opposites because they have to add to 0. If I add 10 and negative 10 together, that's going to be 0. If you have no middle value, and c is negative, it may be what we call difference of squares. What you do notice is that the square root of 100 is 10, the square root of x squared is x, but what we do have is a positive 10 and a minus 10 that will cancel each other out. So let's recap real quick. If I have a positive c value and a positive b value, I'm going to have positive inside. If I have a negative c value, and it doesn't matter if the b is positive or negative, as you see here, I'm going to have one positive and one negative value. In my third example, I had a negative c and a negative b, which meant, again, negative c, I need to have positive negative. The tricky case is when I have a positive c, but a negative b. Remember, that's going to be a negative situation. Minus, minus. And my special case again is if I can take the square root of both of these numbers, square root of x squared is x, square root of 100 is 10, and I have no middle value, the b is 0, it's going to be what we call difference of squares. Positive 10, negative 10 cancel each other out to make 0.